Welcome to People and Profit, your essential business briefing. Coming up, breaking down barriers to prosperity. We speak to the CEO of the World Bank on why the law needs to lead the way in boosting women's economic rights. Try before you farm, the French initiative giving real-life experience to those considering swapping the office for the fields. And there's something in the bubbles. We speak to the family that pioneered biodynamic champagne production. First up, though, a 10-year study that looks at how legal barriers have affected economic opportunities for women. The World Bank has found that globally, women only have 3/4 of the legal rights accorded to men when it comes to things like getting jobs or starting their own businesses. There has been progress in the past decade, but this report says that only 6 countries have achieved perfect scores when it comes to equality. For more on this, I'm joined by the Chief Executive and Interim President of the World Bank, Kristalina Georgieva. Thank you very much for being with us from Washington. Can you explain to us what is the goal of tracking these legal barriers in this report?
The main objective is to support countries to make the legal reforms that bring women on equal footing with men. It is the right thing to do for women, but it is actually very important for economies to prosper. And we have seen that when women participate actively in the economy, the country, the society is wealthier. That comparator that we provide helps policymakers to zero on where they're falling behind and what steps they need to take to catch up. And let me recognize that in this analysis of 10 years of reforms, France came on top. It is one of the 6 countries with a score of 100 maximum, meaning that legally women and men have equal rights, and it is the country that has made most progress during these 10 years. Félicitations.
But it's also a case that in these 6 countries that you identified, France being one, that have your full scores, that doesn't mean that there's equality across the board, though. For example, there's still a gender pay gap. So where is the utility of this measurement versus the broader picture?
Legal rights is a very important first step. It has to be followed by implementation of the laws on the books. And as you rightly said, even in the 6 countries that have a score of 100, there is still no full equality for women. The gender gap in pay, for example, in France is 8%, and it is 20% globally. 131 countries have improved the legal standing of women. Only 2 countries have taken steps back over this 10-year period. And that progress has to be sustained.
So what sort of improvements are we talking about? What sort of reforms have been passed?
The most significant reforms are in the economic rights of women. The rights of women to freely move, the rights of women to inherit assets, the rights of women to have the access to jobs like men, no restrictions, the rights of women to have paid leave, to have parental leave, in other words, both for men and women, and the rights of women to be protected against violence. In this area, we have seen very significant improvement. There have been 35 reforms providing protection against sexual harassment for 2 billion women around the world. While reforms are progressing, it is very important to state that in an average economy today, a woman still has only 3/4 of the rights of a man. We still have a long way to go.
And there's an economic benefit for countries in bringing in this legal equality as well.
This is where we are emphasizing gender equality is great for women and men. We calculated that the world is missing a staggering $160 trillion of wealth because we are holding women back. So to succeed, societies ought to tap into the potential of all its people, men and women.
So what's holding the other countries back? There is progress being made in some places, but why isn't this happening faster?
There are countries where more progress is being made with laws on the book, but less progress with the implementation of these laws. For example, we find that if there is protection against violence against women, but there is no safe transportation for women to go from home to school or work, the law doesn't really matter. For example, in India, we are financing projects that provide safe transportation to women by having women-only rail cars. We also emphasize very strongly the ability of women to use their rights to inherit, to have a bank account, to open a business, to start a job.
Okay, so plenty of cause for optimism there, but progress to be made still. Kristalina Georgieva from the World Bank, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
We're turning next to the International Agriculture Show being held here in Paris. It's an event that brings a slice of rural life into the French capital at a time when the industry needs more farmers. To help encourage those who are tempted, dozens of test farms have popped up around the country, giving future farmers a chance to try out life in the fields. Erin Ogunkeye reports.
They are interested in farming, but not yet sure if they're ready to take the plunge. The solution? This test organic farm in western France. The initiative allows 4 future farmers to try their hand at cultivating vegetables. At 38 years old, former social worker Amélie Miellon arrived this morning for the start of the year-long training.
With my prior experience, I knew farming would be a huge change. I needed to learn not only about production, but also marketing, anticipating the different crops, interpersonal skills, and a lot of management and administrative work. So it's a considerable amount of work.
For some, 1 year isn't always enough. Former video technician Sophie Linné wants to make sure she's certain about the choice before making the full professional transition.
Working on your own farm isn't easy. You need capital to get started. You have to find land. There's a lot of administrative work. So I'd like to keep learning to make sure I'm ready to work on my own.
An agricultural school lends its land to the trainees. And thanks to revenue generated from the sale of produce, the test farm pays for itself. The apprentice farmers are trained and supervised by professionals who are there to identify even the smallest errors.
There are a few garlic cloves that were planted in the wrong direction, with the root facing outwards, so it's unlikely they'll grow.
It's extremely useful. It helps us avoid making huge mistakes.
Mistakes they can't afford to make when they begin working independently. Half of the apprentices move on to cultivating their own land in the years following their training. There are some 70 test farms across France.
Now, biodynamic farming is a practice that we're hearing more and more about at the Paris Agriculture Show. It's a step beyond organic farming based on principles developed by an Austrian philosopher in the 1920s. It's applied in lots of different kinds of farming, but the Fleury family were the first biodynamic champagne producers. And Morgane Fleury joins me now in studio to tell me more. Thank you for coming in to see us.
Thank you for inviting me.
What is different about making champagne in the biodynamic way?
First of all, I think it gives more sense to your work, so it's hard work in the vineyards, and it's an understanding about all the combination between the earth and the moon cycle. So it goes with natural practice. At all, you will never use some chemical treatment, but you will go more on the preparation with herbs, plants that we pull sometimes more for the roots or more for the leaves.
And does it make it more difficult then? Is it more work than...?
Of course, because it's you have to go before as after your vineyard is sick. So it's more to understand your soil. How is life? How is the life there? If you have to bring compost or not? If you to give more power to your wines, actually.
And how did your family get involved in this biodynamic production?
Oh, actually, I think my father, he wanted to be an astronomer.
Astronomer,
sorry.
wow.
Astronomer, and he had to do the same job as my grandfather. So 16, he was directly in the vineyards, and later, with my mother, I discovered both this philosophy of biodynamic right from Rudolf Steiner. They wanted to bring it to the vineyards, and we observe it.
The story has continued.
Yeah, continue with now two of my brothers, because it's 4th-generation family business, and quite proud to protect our soil in the right way of it has to be.
People know the big brands in the Champagne region that produce. So you're a little bit of a smaller brand, but do you find that being biodynamic is something that you can sell, because you sell all over the world?
Yeah, we sell all over the world. I think the professional recognize the quality. And I always say you may not like our champagne, but you have to approve that the taste is more deep. And we talk about minerality in the biodynamic wines, because the rules feed them with the mineral of the soil. The terroir is unique everywhere in the world, so it makes a unique wine.
So you can taste the difference when you drink the champagne?
Of course, you taste the difference. And I think you drink better things also for your health. And that's why it's so important. And I believe that more and more wine producers will go in this direction.
Because, of course, you have a shop here in Paris as well that sells biodynamic wines. Do you feel that many more people are getting involved in this? Do you think it's becoming more popular? Yes,
of course. I think it's go faster by the still wine as by the champagne. The champagne is protected by the big brands. And the understanding of champagne is not going always with the wine, so we have to educate people, and that's the job I do since 10 years. Go back to real champagne, that's wine first, and bubble for the happiness.
Okay, Morgane Fleury, thank you very much for coming in to speak to us.
Thank you.
And that's all from us for now, but you can always contact the team with your thoughts on any of the stories that we've been covering. You'll find us on Facebook and on Twitter. Until next time, thanks for watching.